There's a common saying that life is like a video game, a saying that basically implies that the rush you feel when leveling up in a video game is similar to the one you get when you improve your life in the real world. The term level up in life exists for a reason, right? Many self-help influencers try to use these analogies to appeal to the younger crowds, because it seems relatable and easy, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? In theory, it does make sense. If the goal in life is to be the best version of yourself possible, doing things like improving your speech, your strength, your money, your charisma can be very similar to leveling up stats in video games. And somebody who spends all day playing a game with a leveling system similar to that might draw an analogy to it, giving them a push to change their life. Life is like a video game seems like a good saying, but honestly, when you really think about it, it's not really true at all. Life and video games are incredibly different from each other. While there are some similarities you can draw from them, these two things operate in completely different ways that makes this analogy kind of dumb. Let's start with number one. Life in general is not fair. There are a lot of unfortunate things that happen that cause people to be not as equal as other people. Video games, however, are quite balanced in the sense that you get what you put into it. In life, there's a saying that hard work pays off. You set your mind to something, you do the necessary steps to achieve the said goal, and voila, you get what you want. All your blood, sweat, and tears finally pay off, and you become a Giga Chad. Or an alpha, high value man, beta, sigma, I don't know whatever the term is. Similar to a video game, right? You learn how to play the game, you get really good at it, do the necessary quests to progress, get to the final boss, and boom, you win the game. Sounds similar to life, but unfortunately, it's a bit more complicated than that. Life in general is just not fair. You could be the most qualified, hardworking person in the entire group you're competing with, the individual who did everything right as you fought through your challenges, only to lose to some nepo baby kid whose dad runs the company. And it isn't just with achieving goals either. Think about your starting position. In video games, it's the same for everyone. Most of the time when you start a new game, chances are you're going to be in the same spot as every other new player, and all of you have the exact same opportunities to level up within the game. In life, that's not the case. Some people start off with no money, some people have mental disabilities that hold them back. You know, there's just a bunch of different reasons that could potentially hold somebody back from someone else who probably has a much better starting position. Opportunities are also not equal for every single person. People born in third world countries are definitely not going to get the same benefits for their work compared to those born in first world countries. And yeah, of course video games have balancing issues. Some games have a class or a weapon that's extremely broken and all the players hop onto it and use it. Some games are pay to win, so people just dump a bunch of money into it so they can cheat their way to becoming good. But you know how these types of games feel? They suck. Nobody wants to play them. Everyone complains about them, and the devs just have to spend like the next year fixing the game after launch with patch updates. In life, you can try to fix these bugs, but do they ever get patched? Sometimes, but usually, nah. There's a reason why people get hooked on video games. It feels fair. Your work gets rewarded. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. But life, it just doesn't work like that all the time. In life, there's a lot of shit that you don't want to do, but you have to do it because you need to. Like eating, for example. Well, it's a pretty good feeling to eat when you're hungry. You don't really have the option to just not do it. If you end up not eating, you kind of just die. And GG, the game is over. You can eat the least amount of food possible to survive, but your experience in life is probably going to suck if you have to do that. And while food is an example that isn't too bad, because although it's work to eat, you feel like it matters because it benefits you. But taxes, commuting, inflation, bills, mental illness, the fucking Paul brothers? See, this is what makes life not fun. Doing things you don't want to do, but having to do them, even though they serve no purpose in your existence. Having to stay 8 hours at your job, even though you could finish the work within half the time. Having to commute for your job or school, even though you could do the work from your laptop in your house. Having to have your savings and purchasing power deplete over time because money printer go burr. Having to pay an extra $250 for your rent because your landlord was just like, F it. This is what makes life not fun. The BS of it all. The stuff that doesn't need to be there, but just is. Like GTA Online, the game that's been out for nearly the entirety of Gen Alpha's lifespan. You have to pay for property, you have to pay for business fees and stuff, you have to work to earn money, you know, normal stuff. But like, dude, imagine when you start GTA Online, you have to work at the local suburban shop in Los Santos for like 8 in-game hours, only to get a small amount of money where 12% just gets taken out. Then you have to find an apartment and try to get approved by multiple people instead of just outright buying it. Then you have to pay a fee that takes up 75% of your money from your job, plus the additional cost for utilities. Oh, and the apartment isn't furnished, so you gotta buy the furniture yourself. Then you need a vehicle to drive to work, but instead you have to drive normally through traffic to get to said job. On top of that, your character gets hungry and tired, so you need to sleep and eat a certain amount of times so your character operates properly and doesn't feel nerfed, leaving you less time to do other things. Then there's a patch update where the in-game money is now worth less, so everything in the game is more expensive and now you have to work longer at your job to compensate for it. Then your character gets bazooka blasted by another player, so now they can't do certain activities like they used to. You go to the hospital to fix them, only to get slapped with a $3,000 bill that you can't afford. You unfortunately go into debt. Your landlord decides to raise the price of your apartment that you're staying in, furthering your negative financial situation. You decide to get a better job to make more money, but instead of immediately starting upon request, you go through interviews to try to prove yourself, only to get rejected by all of them in favor of other players who had paid for in-game purchases to help with that. You decide that you want to move out of your apartment and get a house in order to not pay your landlord, only to have a rich player buy all the property in your area to make passive income for themselves, causing all of the houses you thought you could afford to skyrocket in value. Instead of usually being able to purchase one for a fixed flat rate, you go to the bank to get a loan, only to get denied because they notice your debt and think you're not responsible enough to make mortgage payments on time. Your character gets depressed and is unable to do certain activities in-game anymore. In order to somewhat get their energy back, you make them watch a boxing match in a bar, only to make them more depressed because they have to see the fucking Paul brothers. Like, anyone would play this game and be like, this fucking sucks, and would just quit immediately and do something else. In real life, you can't just get up and quit. Well, I mean, technically there is a way you can. I'm not saying life sucks or anything. There's a lot of fun stuff to do, and it is worth grinding to get it. But there's a lot of things in life that are BS, stuff that you just don't want to do, or has no value to anything in your life. In video games, you can avoid all of it. There's no BS stuff that you have to do in order to get to where you want to be. You can just start right away. And no matter what you do, it's guaranteed to work out. You just have to put in the hours. No luck, only skill. There are some games where you have to do BS like farming and stuff, but most people hate doing that. They only do it because they have to. If there was an option to avoid it, they would. And even if you have to farm in order to get some points or whatever, nobody's forcing you to do it that way. It's only there if you want to. You can always quit and do something new if you want. Yeah, you can do that in life as well, but it's not that simple. Not everyone in life can get up and quit their monotonous job and chase their dreams. Money's gotta come in from somewhere, and until then, you'll have to balance both in order to survive. Most of the time in game, there's nothing that's out of your control that can completely ruin your experience at the game. Unless the developers throw in some absolute BS, the game will play the way that it does. Life isn't that static. Things happen in the world that you don't want, but it is your responsibility to deal with. Inflation, death, rejection, inequality, war, injustice, the existence of the Paul brothers. It can really throw you off. Picture this scenario, yeah? You're in class bored out of your mind, and suddenly you notice a pretty girl sitting next to you alone. You're not interested in dating her, you just want to get to know her. You think about talking to her. You try to gather the confidence to talk to her, but you're kind of afraid. Finally, class ends. It's now or never. You say something to her to start a conversation. She responds, but she is very shy. You continue this conversation as you walk out of class. Both of you are extremely nervous. She doesn't want to talk to you, and you obviously want to stop this as well, but you're both walking in the same direction, so it'd be like really awkward to stop talking to each other while walking right next to each other in the same direction. You feel this is a good opportunity to work on your social skills, because you're socially awkward, and you don't really have much friends at the moment, so you continue to keep the conversation going. The whole time, she's obviously very shy and gives you one-word responses, indicating that she wants to stop talking, but you're too stupid to realize that. Finally, you reach a crossroads. You think about asking her for her snap as a way to keep in touch. Again, you're not interested in dating, just trying to get a friend. She mistakenly thinks you're hitting on her, and she says, You awkwardly stumble over your words and tell her that you're not trying to date her, but you're so shocked and awkward, you sound like an idiot trying to explain this to her. You then just say you want to keep in touch just to share notes with each other, and she gives you her snap. You finally part ways. You cringe for the rest of the day, thinking to yourself, you wish you never, ever existed. Now let's say that happened to you. You probably want to redo that moment, right? Perhaps undo it altogether so you never have to ever think about it again? I know I would. In video games, you can do this. In life, you cannot. That's the cool thing about games. If you make a dumb decision, you don't have to live with the regret or consequences. You can just redo it and do something different. There are no redo options with life, so you have to bear the responsibility of your said decisions. And look, I understand that people need to be held accountable for their actions, especially if you're doing some heinous shit. But a lot of times, most people just make dumb decisions because they don't know any better. That just makes people extremely afraid of taking risks, keeping people in mundane activities that bore them out of the thrill of life. And yeah, technically, you can do whatever you want to do with your life, but that doesn't mean it'll always work out the way you want it to. I can start a business and work hard if I want, but if the business fails, all I will have to show for it is experience. I may potentially be in crippling debt, bad health, or have shaven time off my limited life. And even if I build a thriving business, if I decide to just sell it or quit, I won't be able to get that time back. Time that I spent doing a mundane activity that I didn't really want to do, but only did because the opportunities that I wanted to do weren't available for me. And in life, you tend to leave a permanent record, especially with the internet. Your past is open for documentation, and you might not be able to undo those mistakes. If you went to jail for like a misdemeanor, or had an OF account, that was a random jump I know, your odds of finding a normal job may not be as easy. Whereas in a video game, you can always just reload the save file and change a mistake you made. Even if you did an oopsie in a game where you chose the wrong build or you made your nose too big in the character creator, you can always have the option to change it. Plus, there's no set time limit in a video game. It's not like it bars you out after an equivalent of a human lifetime in game. You have unlimited time to explore whatever you want within the game. In the real world, your time is limited, causing you to be extremely careful on how you spend it. Your mistakes are not as easy to overcome as they are to make. And unless you have a good spawn point, you're probably going to spend a lot of your time doing mundane tasks that you don't really want to do just for the sake of survival. And on the off chance that you may be able to live the dream life that you want. And if you unfortunately fail, then you basically just have a lot of wasted time that you might not be able to get back. Yeah, life and video games are very different, but these were all the points that I could think of. I could probably say a lot more in this video, but it would probably be way longer. I've yapped on long enough. There might be a way to potentially make society and the world as fair and as balanced as a video game, but I don't know how to do that. I'm not smart enough.